Hello, lovely sewing friends. This is something new. So today I'm going to show you guys how to do a lovely hand stitch on your garments because I recently finished one of my sewing projects using this hand sewing technique. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. So first of all, I would recommend some really good hand sewing needles. Now these ones are birch. They're the Sharps needles range here. So I tend to get these really sharp hand sewing needles because, first of all, obviously they're sharp, but also they've got a really, really nice narrow needle to them, obviously. And they're just really easy and they kind of go through seamlessly, pun intended. But also they don't leave a hole in your fabric as you sew. So we've got that. We're just going to put that off to one side. So that's our needle. Keep it in frame, shall we? How about that? Next, some good quality sewing thread. So here I use Gutermann all the time. Obviously, amazing thread. So with this thread, it's really, really strong. So it's the polyester type. It's really strong and it's available everywhere. So Gutermann thread I would recommend. Pop that there. And the next thing we are going to need is the thing we are going to be sewing. So this is just a little offcut. I'm actually just going to pop these out of sight there just so I can show you guys here how I prepared my sewing first time round. So here I'm going to be sewing a little hem on this pant leg or a cuff or whatnot. Now the first thing you'll notice is that with my seam allowance I've turned it the different ways, and I'll show you how and why I'm doing that first. So this pant leg here, I've sewed a center seam here, and then I've also overlocked this edge here. Now this is an additional step you can do. You don't have to do it, but I love having all of my garments with really high quality finishes on the inside, even though you can't see them. So that's what I like to do. So I think this is like a 2 centimeter seam allowance here. Not seam allowance. I mean 2 centimeter cuts there, because that is going to be how deep we are going to fold our hem. So I'm going to show you now. So if I was to fold this up now without having those cuts there, and I'll show you why this is important. If I fold it like that, so that's one fold, and then the second fold here, this seam here is really, really bulky. So that's 6 layers of fabric in there, right? So instead, I took my scissors. These are probably a bit big for the job, but they work. And I cut there and there, and that's where my folds are. And then I pressed it opposite directions. What this will do is to distribute the bulk of the seam allowance, so that when I fold up my seam allowance like that once and then twice, I've actually only got about 4 layers of fabric in there, because 2 of them are over here. And this is a really great way that you can distribute the bulk of your seam without clipping or, doing anything as in like clipping the seam allowance away, but you just clipped into the seam allowance and distributed that bulk there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I would prepare, well, I'll show you how I prepare it, but now I'm going to show you how I actually do the things before actually hand sewing. So first of all, overlock, then that, and then I'm going to fold it up, and then I'm going to fold it up again. So that's like my finished hem width. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to the other side and fold it down like that. And the thing I love with this fabric and showing you for this tutorial is that all of my patterns are going to match. That's a great thing about a check. So already that's all around. It's going to be about 2 centimeters. It is a offcut, so it's not like the most perfect, it's warped the fabric a bit because this actually was a another garment. So you could easily stitch by hand with that raw edge there catching the overlocking, but what we're going to do is fold it again once more. Now here, because I've got that first initial fold, ideally I would iron it, but I'm just going to show you guys now. Ideally I would iron it, but that width of that fabric is giving me something to kind of like push back on so that I achieve a really nice fold throughout there. And so I tend to wear all of my pins on this little pin cushion on my arm. I swear to God, this is the best thing ever. I get so much more sewing done because of it. Because my pins are always in easy reach. So what I'm going to do, or I have this little pig tin here. And again, birch needles, very, very good. They're actually quilting needles. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to pin all around my my cuff. So I tend to start at the center seam. So I make sure I line up that stitch line just there. And some nice parallel pinning is all you really need. And this is made really, really easy because of the type of fabric that I'm using as well. This is a cotton, I think. It's like I said, this isn't a fabric that I bought. It's it was a dress. I'm just going to quickly make sure that that's all tucked in. Yep. So it was a dress that I then made into a top, and then this is just some of the offcuts that I'm showing you guys how to do some hand stitching on. So here, I'm lining that up, getting my pins. And when I pin, I use my pinky finger and my ring finger to pinch the fabric like that, and so that I can pull it. Now, I am pulling on a pin there, but you know, that's not really going anywhere. And then I can use my thumb and my big finger here to push and pull the fabric between them so I can get that all lined up perfectly. This is my first tutorial showing you guys this. It's quite fun, I quite like it. So yeah, so that's nice and taut all around here. So here you can see that's all nicely pinned, nice and even. Another way you can check that it's all evenly spaced is I'm just going to open up my, what do you call it, my drawer here. Can't find it in there, so just give me 1 second. Usually in this scenario, you would use a measuring gauge, but I don't seem to have mine on me. But you can just easily go, that's around 2.5 centimeters. And just checking in different spots, making sure that's a little bit off. And here I'm just going to be a little bit nitpicky because I want to show you guys in the best possible way. So I'm just going round. Yep, 2.5. No biggie if it's not, but that there is your hem. So we're going to put that off to one side for now. Now it comes to getting our thread and needle prepared. So I've got this Gutermann. I'm just going to snip that end because that's the end that I just snapped off. So I've got my Gutermann thread and I'm going to pull out quite a bit like that. And then I'm using the tail of my thread and I'm just going to wrap it around the base of that reel there and then snip it off. I'm holding it in my left hand and then using my fingers to hold it nice and taut and snip in the middle like that. Getting my oh gosh, I forgot the name for my fingers in a second. My thumb and my index finger and my needle. I'm just going to gently pull the thread back so that the thread is right in between those two fingertips and slowly lower my needle onto it like that. Makes it really easy, and then pinch and then pull through. There we go. And the reason I really like to have a long tail when it comes to my threads is that I then double it back on itself. I double it back on itself so that as I sew, I've got a lot of reserve there. So this is probably about like, probably a meter of thread, and then I've doubled it back, I would say 40 centimeters, and then I've got a really long tail here. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to start and finish sewing this without doing a knot, right? So we're going to go over to the side seam here. This is such a good tip, right? And what you're going to do, you're going to start with your needle going under like that, and then you're going to come up near the stitch line right there. Can you see that? Right there. So I'm just going to pull that through, and I'm going to use my index and my thumb to pinch, not harshly, but nice and gently, until the tail of the thread starts to wiggle under there. So I've got about like 3 or 4, well 5 actually, centimeters there, and I've got the tail. See, it's moving nice and freely. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm actually just going to zoom you guys in a little bit because this might get a little bit fiddly. What we're going to do here, right, is where there's lots of fabric. It's a really good anchoring spot for your thread. What you're going to do is go under that stitch, those couple of fibers there, and up there. So we're just catching it ever so slightly, and then pull through. And be nice and gentle on that first stitch. And then you're going to do a third and a fourth. This is called anchoring the stitch. And you'll see now that tail's not going to come out, and that has provided a really nice secure base in the most densest part of your garment for you to now start sewing. So you can either sew with your needle and thread going that way. I'm going to show you guys this way, right? So the way I'm going to show you how to do this, we're going to do something similar to like a blind stitch, because let's say this cuff or this pant hem, we're doing it because we don't want a line of top stitching on these areas here because they're different colors and you might not want the line of stitching. So that's why we're doing this stitch. Now here, I'm just going to put my, I actually probably can take that pin out now. What I'm going to show you guys how to do is we're going to go under a few of the threads, not in the stitch line, but in the fabric. See, I've only got probably one bit of thread on there from the fabric, and we're going to go into the fold of the pant hem. You see how I've just gone along the upper channel of that fold, and then I'm going to push it through. I really like to use these fingers so that I can kind of feel it go through. And if I feel like I'm pulling too hard, I can stop it with my thumb and fingers. And then what you're going to do, when you've come out, you're going to go back with your needle. See, I've got a teeny tiny little thread there. And then I'm going to go back in and along. I'm probably going along like 1 centimeter. And then pull. And then you can move it along a little bit. Go into the back of the fabric. See, this is why sharps are so important, just to get that little bit of your fabric. And we're just moving along. And you can do these as far apart or close as you want, but the closer together they are, the more secure it's going to be, and the further apart they are, the looser the hem will be on your like secured. So we're just going to go along like this. I love how it just disappears. So if we just look back there, I'm only catching little bits all the way along here. And the important thing here is to make sure you're just taking it nice and slowly, picking up a thread, back into the pant fold, the hem fold really, and then through. And as you go along, you can just start removing your pins. Now that we're coming up to like a very aligning spot here, I want to make sure that I get that all nice and secured. So I'm just doing a smaller distance stitch there so that this part here can be lined up perfectly. So just grabbing that and then going through. Now I can go to a longer stitch there. Oops. And pulling through. This is a really relaxing piece of sewing because you have to be so mindful of where you're stitching, how you're stitching, the thread going through the hem, the distance between your stitches, and then watch that stitch just disappear. So you can see so far, you can see tiny little pinpricks maybe, but on the whole, there's no stitch line that you can see, and it's just so beautiful. Such a beautiful way to finish a garment. You can probably tell it's quite hypnotic actually, because you just get so into it, and it takes practice. Of course it does, as anything takes practice. But you can see here, okay, I really want to align those 2 points, right? So I'm going to come up right on that edge. Now that's the thing, a beauty, eh? And I'm going to take out that pin or drop it on the floor, whichever's fine, and come up just there. I always thought I could either be a seamstress or a surgeon due to my sewing skills. I think I choose seamstress. It's a lot less blood. And if you end up doing a lot of sewing, you can always get a thimble for your finger. But with something that's so lightweight as this, and so, what do you call it? Like, you know, you don't have to push very hard through the fabric. You won't really need one. But the sharps needle makes such a big difference because I'm literally picking up one little bit of that fabric and then going back through like that. See? There. And then again reaching that distinct line. Oops. Keeping everything to one side. With more transparent fabrics, this could be a really good way to secure a hem because the fold of the fabric will kind of disguise the, what do you call it, the line of stitching and the thread instead of top stitching. And as you'll notice, as I'm going along, my reserve tail is getting closer and closer to my stitch line. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, see I've got 2 there, and I'm just going to release the tail a little bit so that as I sew, make sure it's in frame, Annie, good one. So I've just released that tail a little bit, so I've got a smaller tail, but I'll make sure it doesn't get caught up in my stitch line. And look, we're so close to the end now. There we go. Last pin's done. I remember when I was sewing like this at uni, something like this would take me at least an hour because I think I was talking about a lot. Because if a whole bunch of girls are around a table and we're supposed to be doing something. I can bet you we're not. We're just gossiping. It's kind of like I'm gossiping. Well, not gossiping to you guys now, but you know what I mean. Sorry if you wobble a bit. It's my glasses actually hitting the tripod that I have you guys set up on. There we go. I reckon I can do this in 4 more stitches. It's very tempting to rush this kind of thing, especially when you're so close to the end, but you want to make sure it looks good on the inside and the outside. Yeah, I reckon 2 more stitches. There. And then here, we're going to go, I'm actually going to just do 1 more there, just because of that bulk. Okay, here we go. And now we're going to anchor our stitch again, right back at our start. So, remember how we started over here? We're doing 3 stitches. We're going to do the exact same 1, 2, 3, and then, I love this part, you've got to go back through so that it comes out where our first stitch came out, all the way through, and then cut. Snip. And then you can go back here and get that tail and snip off the excess. Look, there you have it. Look at that. Look at what we did. So if I just turn this inside out and zoom you guys out, look, you would not be able to at all see. Oh, I can see 1. I think I might have gotten a little bit giddy there, but on the whole, that is how you finish a beautiful hem. I hope you guys like that. This is my first sewing tutorial like this, so if you guys want to learn more, make sure you pop them down in the comments, and yeah, I really like this, so I'll show you guys more, definitely. Okay, bye.